Well, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck. It's Tuesday, July 11th, about the middle of the afternoon. I'm over here at the park and thought I'd try to shoot a little video and talk about how my old truck's doing. I've had it running for about a week now. It's a little bit windy, so I think the best thing for me to do would be to go over here and just sit in the truck. So I'm going to do that. Blackjack, you want to move over there? Come on, buddy. Move over on the other side. Go over in your seat. Let me come and sit. Okay, we'll try that and see how that works. It should get me out of the wind. But thought I'd give you a little background on the old truck. I've talked about it some, and I made a video about it quite a while ago, but I don't know how many of you went back and watched that one. It didn't get much traction. But anyway, I bought this old truck 9 years ago, in 2014, and paid a grand sum, a princely sum of $900 for it. And it ran, but it had some issues, and I drove it for 2 or 3 years, and finally the issues got bad enough I had to park it for a little while. And I'll tell you about what that was, but let me kind of give you an overview. And so it sat for, oh golly, almost a year, because I knew it was going to cost some money to fix it, and I'm not a wealthy guy, and so I was kind of saving up cookie jar money. And I jokingly talk about cookie jar money because that's kind of what I do for a project. And when I bought this truck, I wasn't even actually looking for a truck like this. I've been saving cookie jar money up, and I was going to build myself a rat rod. And now many of you might be car people, and you might know what a rat rod is, but I'm sure some of you don't. And but if you're on YouTube and you just type in rat rod, there'll be all kinds of videos telling you what a rat rod is. And basically, it's a hot rod that's kind of done a little bit more on the cheap. And some guys get totally carried away with put big motors in them and all that kind of stuff like that and spend a lot of money. But that's a true rat rod doesn't have all that. A true rat rod is used to say if you spend over $1,500 on it, it wasn't a rat rod anymore. And that's kind of changed now, because $1,500 won't buy you much. But the whole idea behind a rat rod is it's just a beat up old vehicle, body damage and all that kind of stuff like that kind of meets the fun to drive aspect of a hot rod. But it's it doesn't. But you don't have a lot of money in it. In other words, not a lot of fancy shiny paint, and not a lot of chrome and billet aluminum and all that kind of stuff like that. And rust is okay, and something pretty outlandish is okay. And I was going to build one of those, and then I came upon this truck, and then for some reason or other, this truck spoke to me. And like I said, I didn't get much for it, $900. And so I drove it. Like I said, I drove it, and then the mechanical problem I had with it got bad enough that I parked it for a little while. And then when 2020 came along and the pandemic, as a pandemic project, I thought, well, I'll go ahead and fix it. So I was able to, I pulled the motor out of it, pulled the motor apart, and fixed what was wrong with it, and did everything by myself. It took me about, good grief, month and a half, 2 months to do it. And the only thing I had any help with was taking the hood off and putting the hood back on. The neighbor came over and helped me with that because it's kind of heavy and awkward. But other than that, I did every bit of it. I dropped the transmission, I pulled the engine out, put it on a stand, pulled the engine apart, figured out what was wrong with it, fixed it, put it all back together, put a bunch of new parts in it, and got it all back together and got it running in the late summer. Got a fly bothering me. Late summer of 2020. And so I've been driving it off and on, and it's this old truck, it's got 157,000 miles on it, which isn't real high mileage, but it wasn't taken care of real good. It was an old Public Works Department truck, and they kind of, toward the end there, they kind of run it into the ground. And so there's a bunch of stuff I fixed on it, and the motor, of course, was the big thing, and transmission seems like it's been pretty good. I haven't had any trouble with that. And so what did I do to it? Well, it had this is a 92, and the emission system in it was real complicated and failure prone and gave a lot of problems, and so I decided to do an emissions delete on it. Now, I live in a county that doesn't require emissions testing, and in Arizona, when a vehicle hits 30 years old, they don't require emissions testing either. So, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, I decided that couldn't figure out a way to fix it and make it right, so I'd take it off. Well, in the process of doing that, that probably upped the horsepower by 50 horsepower, and all of a sudden it got kind of spunky. Well, when I had it apart, I went ahead and I sent the fuel injectors down, and I had them optimized and equalized, and so that kind of made it run smooth. And then the work I did on it, I had some issues on it. I had to take it apart again. I put brand new valve lifters in it, and one of the valve lifters was defective, if you can imagine that. It was not heat treated, it wore down, and so I had this mysterious ticking sound that I couldn't think it could possibly be any of the parts I put in it, because I put a bunch of new parts in it, but that's turned out to be what it was, and I never have to pull it apart again after set. So it's been sitting on and off for quite a while. But now it's running good. I told the story before about the battery and the electrical problem I had, and now that it's got a new battery in it, and then, you know, I had 4-month-old gas in it, and it was still running pretty good. So I put some new gas in it, fresh gas in it today, and good grief, now it runs even better. So that's what prompted me to sit down and make this video today. So basically, what do I still have to do with it? Well, I still got, you know, it's not pristine, it's not perfect. I'm still in the process of restoring it. And but some of the things I need, probably the biggest thing I need right now is tires. The front tires are worn down pretty bad. The back tires got a lot of tread on them. But they're way, way out of date, and they're dry rotted a little bit. I wouldn't want to take this and try to head to Amarillo, Texas with it or anything. Got somebody walking by, you might see somebody in the background there. So, you know, it needs tires. That's going to be a pretty good expense. I pulled the front wheels off of it to pack the wheel bearings, because who knows last time that was done, and I found a bad bearing, so it was a good thing I did it. But one of the reasons I did that was because it's got that... They got the hard spots on the rotors, and so when you put the brakes on, the brakes surge and jerks the steering wheel back and forth, and it's probably not a safety issue. The pads are good, but it's irritating as heck, and it's not right. And so I had the rotors off. I sent them over to the auto parts store. I was going to have them turned and trued up, and it turned out they've been turned enough times that they couldn't turn them anymore. They were down to minimal spec, and I didn't have the money to put new rotors on it, so I need to do that one of these days if I really want to make it right. But that's one thing, and that'll cost a little bit of time and be a little bit more work. But I have, like I say, I repacked the wheel bearings, and all that stuff is good. So the rear brakes, I've never had them apart, and so I think that at some point in time I need to do that, and I could probably pretty much expect that I need to put rear brakes on it at the time. And haven't changed the differential, the gear oil in the rear differential. It's got a Dana 60 rear end, and I need to pull the cover off of that one of these days and take a look at that and make sure it's okay, and then put fresh gear oil in it. That'll be more of a headache, but it won't cost a lot of money to do that. But the biggest expense thing I got is tires, and then of course the brake thing. And also, if you hear it run, it's got kind of a whine, and that's the power steering pump needs to be replaced. It still works, but it makes a pretty loud whine, and that's kind of characteristic to this motor. This is a 351 Windsor, which is a 5.8 liter. The transmission's a C6 automatic, which Ford made millions of them, and it's one of the last of the 3-speed dumb transmissions before they went into the computer-controlled transmissions. But it's a good, solid old truck. It doesn't have any rust. The interior's in pretty good shape now. It needs a dash and needs some other stuff, and I'll fiddle with it gradually as I get the time and get the money. And you know, how long will I drive this? I don't really know. I like driving it around town. It's easy to get around with. It's very, very handy. If I need to go to the lumber yard or need to go to the dump or something, it gives me a good vehicle to do that. It saves my new vehicle, so I'm not putting a lot of starting and stopping and stop and go driving on that. So that's just a little bit of update on the truck. It's like I say, it puts a smile on my face to drive it. It's a very basic truck. It's got roll-up windows and rubber floor mats and no cruise and no tilt. And radio works good. I can't complain about that. And I even found out the other day, I hadn't even tried to use air conditioning because I'm not a big fan of air conditioning unless I really have to have it. But it's been a little bit hot here, and the other day I got caught up in some traffic, and I decided to try to see if it worked, and I turned the air conditioning on, and by golly, it worked. Now it needs a blower motor. The blower motor makes a bit of noise, and I need to do that because of course that runs the heater as well. And I think if I did the blower motor, I think the air conditioning worked pretty darn good. So anyway, that's where I'm at. So I'll let you go in the end of this video. I'm shooting another video on another subject, and I'll get them both loaded up this afternoon. But for right now, I'm just going to tell you to take care of each other, love each other, take care of yourself. It's a fun life. I'm glad I'm able to get out and do this kind of stuff. Old Flapjack, he don't like the hot weather much, and he's sitting over there panting. So I'm going to take him back home so he can get some water. Let me spin this around. Like I say, I'm over at the park. I was over at another spot, and all of a sudden a bunch of vehicles pulled in there, and the Sheriff's Department Canine Unit was doing a public demonstration of the dog handler. He's a dog handler, and there's too many people there to try to film over there anymore, so I went ahead and moved over here. So I got a nice wild backdrop, and so for now, until I talk to you again, I'll just say peace out.